The gavel slammed down like a gunshot in the marble halls of the Manhattan courthouse. But it was her voice that shattered me first. "You're fired," Victoria Hale snarled, her ice-blue eyes locking onto mine across the sea of stunned interns. "And if you think this ends here, darling, you've got another thing coming." I stood there, coffee spilling from my trembling hand onto the polished floor, the bitter steam rising like the regret I'd buried for months, because pretending to love her had been the easiest con of my life. Until it wasn't. Rain hammered the penthouse windows like accusations I couldn't dodge anymore. I'd signed the NDA with a smirk that morning, trading my dignity for a paycheck to keep my broke-ass life afloat. But now, as Victoria's fingers traced the scar on my collarbone, the one I'd lied about being from a wild college fling, I wondered if the real betrayal was mine, for believing a woman like her could ever crack open her armored heart without drawing blood. Her lips crashed into mine not with tenderness, but with the fury of a storm she'd bottled up since the day we met, tasting of bourbon and unspoken apologies, unraveling every lie I'd woven around my own fractured soul. I never meant to fall for the Ice Queen of Hale and Associates. Hell, I didn't even mean to get the job. Remy Callahan, 25 years old, fresh out of a nowhere community college paralegal program in Queens, scraping by on ramen and rejection letters, that was me. New York chewed up dreamers like me and spat out the bones, but I kept swinging. Bartending nights at this dive in Hell's Kitchen called O'Malley's, where the regulars tipped in stories instead of cash. That's where she found me. Or rather, where her world collided with mine like a freight train. It was a Tuesday. The kind of gray autumn afternoon where the Hudson River looked like it was auditioning for a noir film. I was wiping down the scarred oak bar, humming some old Springsteen tune to drown out the hum of the ancient fridge, when the door swung open with that telltale whoosh of cold air and entitlement. In walked Victoria Hale, all 5'9" of her, wrapped in a cashmere coat that probably cost more than my rent for a year. She was 35, give or take, with that effortless polish that screamed old money, raven hair pulled into a sleek chignon, lips painted a red that could draw blood, and eyes like shattered sapphires, sharp enough to cut through bullshit from 50 paces. She slid onto a stool, the kind that creaks under pleather pants, and ordered a neat scotch without glancing up from her phone. Poured it, neat as requested, and slid it over. "Rough day in court?" asked. "Because that's what you do in places like this, probe gently, like testing a bruise." She looked up then, really looked, and I felt it like a spotlight. "Rough decade," she said, her voice low and smoky, laced with that Upper East Side drawl that made vowels stretch like taffy. "You got a name. Bartender. Remy." With an eye, "Don't ask about the parents." I grinned, leaning on the bar. My faded band tee, some relic from a Nirvana concert I'd never attended, brushing the edge. Freckles dusted my nose like cinnamon on latte foam, and my auburn hair was tied back in a messy ponytail that screamed, "I gave up at noon." 25. I was all limbs and lingering optimism, the kind that gets you through evictions but not much else. "Remy," she repeated, like she was tasting it. "Cute. You ever think about law?" I laughed, a bark that echoed off the neon signs. "Me? In a suit? I'd combust." "I'm just slinging drinks till something sticks," she sipped, eyes never leaving mine. "Stick with me. Then," and just like that, she slid a business card across the bar, gold embossed. Heavy as sin. "Hale and Associates. Be at my office tomorrow. 9 a.m. Wear something that doesn't smell like stale beer." I stared at it, Heart doing that stupid flip it does when fate texts you drunk. What's the catch? No catch. I need an assistant. Someone. Unpolished. You look like you could use the cash. And I could use the chaos. She stood, tossing a Benjamin on the bar like it was lint from her pocket. Don't be late. Remy. I hate waiting. That night, in my shoebox apartment off 8th Avenue, walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' arguments in stereo, I paced until the floorboards groaned. Who was I to turn down a lifeline? Victoria Hale was a legend. The shark who dismantled corporate empires for breakfast. The woman who'd made headlines suing Big Pharma for poisoning kids in the Bronx. Ruthless? Sure. But in a city that ate the weak, ruthless sounded like survival. The next morning, I scrubbed up in my one decent blouse, a thrift store find with buttons that strained over my runner's build, and showed up at her Midtown tower. All glass and ego. The receptionist eyed me like I'd tracked in pigeon shit. But 5 minutes later, I was in Victoria's corner office, overlooking Central Park like it was her personal kingdom. Sit, she commanded, not looking up from a stack of depositions. Her desk was a war zone of legal pads and coffee rings. Her blouse crisp white silk that hugged curves I'd only seen in magazines. Ground rules, I say jump. You ask how high. No drama. No personal questions. And for God's sake, no tears. This is business. I nodded, swallowing the knot in my throat. Got it. What's first? She finally met my gaze, a ghost of a smile playing on those lethal lips. First, we saved my ass. Turns out, Victoria was neck-deep in a custody battle, not hers, but her firm's biggest client, a tech mogul divorcing his trophy wife over allegations of infidelity. The twist? The wife claimed Victoria's client was the cheater. And to counter, they needed a girlfriend to pose as the alibi. Fake dates, staged photos, the works. And who better than the wide-eyed newbie to play the part? It's pretend, Victoria said, sliding a contract my way. $5,000 up front. 10 more when it's done. Sign. And you're in. I signed. Because $5,000 meant heat in winter and maybe a deposit on a real apartment. But as her fingers brushed mine taking the pen, something sparked electric. Unwanted. Why me? Asked, voice smaller than I liked. Because you don't look at me like I'm a monster, she replied, turning back to her files. Yet, the first date was a disaster wrapped in glamour. We hit Le Bernardin, that French palace where entrees cost more than my weekly grocery run. I fidgeted in the borrowed dress, emerald green, hugging my hips like a dare, while Victoria worked the room, all charm and calculated laughs. Under the table, her heel nudged mine. A silent signal, play along. So, Remy, the client boomed, his face ruddy from wine. How to stun her like you end up with Vic here. She's all work. No play. I forced a blush, channeling every rom-com I'd binged. Oh, you know Vic, sweeps in like a hurricane, ruins your plans, and suddenly you're hooked. I glanced at her, and damn if her eyes didn't soften for a split second, like I'd hit a nerve. Later, in the cab back to my place, the city lights blurring past, she sighed. You were good. Too good. Maybe. Her hand rested on the seat between us, inches from mine. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. This stays fake. Remy. Always. But lies have a way of sticking to your ribs. Over the next weeks, the pretense bled into reality. Morning started with her coffee runs black, 2 sugars, handed over with a thanks, kid that made my stomach twist. Afternoons were depositions where I'd catch her staring, not at the witness, but at me scribbling notes. Evenings, more dates, galas at the Met, where she'd whisper case strategies in my ear like secrets, her breath warm against my skin. One night, after a brutal cross-exam that left her drained, we ended up at her place, a loft in Soho with exposed brick and views that screamed success. She poured us wine, red as her lipstick, and collapsed on the leather sectional. God, I hate this city sometimes. Everyone wants a piece. I sat beside her, closer than protocol allowed. Including me? She laughed, low and throaty, but her eyes were serious. Especially you. Then, softer. Tell me something real. Remy. Not the script. I hesitated, the wine loosening my tongue. Grew up in foster care after Mom OD'd. Bounced around till I aged out. Law's my ticket out, no more scraping by. Tumbled out. Raw and unfiltered. The walls I'd built cracking under her gaze. She reached out, thumb brushing my cheek. You're more than a ticket. Remy. You're. She trailed off, pulling back like she'd touched fire. Forget it. Bedtime, but I couldn't forget. That touch lingered. A promise or a warning. And as I lay in my own bed that night, staring at the water-stained ceiling, I realized the real con was starting. I was falling for the woman who'd hired me to lie. The charade escalated when the wife's lawyers dug deeper, unearthing evidence of Victoria's own past. A messy divorce 5 years back. Whispers of a woman who'd broken her. They'll use it against the firm, Victoria confided one rainy afternoon, pacing her office like a caged panther. I need you to double down. Be convincing. So I did. At the next event, a black tie fundraiser for LGBTQ+ rights at the Rainbow Room, I went all in. Arm linked through hers. I laughed at her dry jokes, stole glances that lingered too long. When a nosy reporter cornered us, I leaned in, lips brushing her ear. Tell him we're endgame. Her hand tightened on my waist. Possessive. Endgame, she echoed. And for a heartbeat, felt true. But truth has teeth. Late one night, scrolling through case files on her laptop with permission, Scout's honor, I stumbled on an email chain. Buried in the metadata, a message from her ex, dated last week. Vic, we need to talk. About us. About what I did. Attached? Photos. Not of the client, of Victoria. Younger. Softer. Wrapped in arms that weren't mine. Jealousy hit like vertigo. Was this why she kept me at arm's length? A ghost still haunting her bed? I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, and stormed out into the November chill. She found me blocks away, huddled under a bodega awning. Remy, what the hell? I whirled, rain mixing with hot tears. Your ex? Still emailing? Is that why this is all pretend? Because you're not over her. Her face crumpled, the mask slipping. It's not God. It's complicated. She cheated. Left me gutted. I hired you because you reminded me what real felt like. Without the risk. Risk? I spat. You think paying me makes it safe? I've been risking my heart every damn day. She stepped closer, the streetlights haloing her like some fallen angel. Then stop. Walk away. But I didn't. I grabbed her collar, pulling her into the shadows of the alley, our breaths mingling in the downpour. Make me. Her kiss was war fierce, demanding, unraveling every defense I'd thrown up. Hands in my hair, body pressing mine against the brick. She tasted like regret and redemption. When we broke apart, gasping, she whispered, "This is real now." Terrifyingly real. For a while. It was. We blurred the lines. Stolen mornings in her sheets. Her fingers tracing my scars like maps to buried treasure. Lazy Sundays at Washington Square Park. Feeding pigeons and dodging her firm's prying eyes. She opened up about her closeted college years at Yale. The pressure from her waspy family to marry a Brooks brother instead of the barista she'd loved. I shared my foster kid anthems. The ache of Christmases alone. The fire that drove me to run marathons just to feel in control. "You're my anchor," she'd murmur. Head on my chest. Her polished world fading against my chaos. And God. I believed her. But anchors drag. The custody trial peaked in a blaze of tabloid fire. Leaked photos of our dates splashed across page 6. Captioned Hale's secret sapphic sidekick? The wife's team pounced, accusing Victoria of fabricating the affair to sway the judge. Perjury, they thundered in court. And suddenly, I was under oath, sweating under fluorescent lights, swearing it was love, not lies. Victoria's hand found mine under the table, a lifeline. But as the gavel fell in our favor, custody to the client, headlines hailing her as the lesbian litigator legend, the victory tasted like ash. Because in the green room post-trial, her phone buzzed. Her ex's name on the screen. I pretended not to see. But pretense has limits. The fallout hit like a nor'easter off the Atlantic, swift, unrelenting, stripping everything bare. Victoria's firm threw a victory bash at some swanky rooftop in Tribeca, champagne flutes clinking like fragile truces. I hovered on the edges, nursing a gin and tonic, my emerald dress from that first dinner now feeling like a costume I'd outgrown. 25. I was still figuring out my edges, freckles fading under city grime, auburn waves frizzing in the humidity, but tonight, I felt exposed, like the kid who'd once hidden report cards from foster parents. She found me by the railing, city sprawl twinkling below like a promise she couldn't keep. "Hey, wallflower. Come dance." Her arms snaked around my waist, pulling me into the throng, her black gown whispering against my skin. We swayed to some indie track, Hosier. Maybe. All soul and sin, and for a moment, it was us against the world, her sharp wit cutting through small talk, my laugh drawing stares. But then her ex appeared. Not in the flesh, but on her phone again. A text lighting up the screen mid-twirl. Saw the win. Drinks. For old times. Victoria paled, shoving it in her clutch like contraband. Who is she? I asked later. Back in the loft. The party's buzz replaced by the hum of the fridge. We were cross-legged on the floor. Take-out tie containers between us. Her silk robe slipping off one shoulder. "Lauren," she said. Voice flat as the East River at low tide. We were 28. Green as hell. She was my TA at a conference, brilliant. Broken. Cheated with her ex-fiancé because it was easier. Left me picking up the pieces during my bar exam. I nodded, poking at pad thai gone cold. And now? Now? Nothing. Closure. Maybe. But her eyes darted away. That telltale lawyer tick. Lies fester. The next week, I tailed her, not proud. But paranoia's a hell of a drug. She slipped out of the office early, hailing a cab to a cafe in the village, the kind with mismatched mugs and Bob Dylan posters peeling at the edges. There sat Lauren, mid-30s, blonde bob sharp as a guillotine, laugh like wind chimes in a gale. They hugged too long, too tight, and over lattes. Victoria's guard dropped. I watched from across the street, rain smearing the window of my coffee shop stakeout, heart cracking like the sidewalk under heels. Betrayal's a slow poison. I confronted her that night, bursting into the loft with the fury of a girl who'd learned early that love was just another system to game. Saw you with her. Nothing. Bullshit. Vic. You're playing me like one of your depositions. She froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Remy. It's not. Save the closing argument. Pace. Voice rising over the patter of rain. You hired me to pretend. Fine. But we crossed that line. Or was I just the rebound prop until she crawled back? Her face twisted, anger. Guilt. Something raw. You think this was easy? Lauren's a black hole. Remy. Sucks you in. Spits you out. I went for answers. Not her. She stepped closer, hands outstretched. You're the one who stayed. The one who sees me. I wanted to believe her. I did. But the walls I'd built in foster homes, brick by brick against rejection, snapped back up. Maybe I see too much. The ruthless attorney who collects hearts like billable hours. The slap of my words echoed. She recoiled, blue eyes storming. Get out. I did. Slamming the door on the life I'd glimpsed. Mornings tangled in Egyptian cotton. Her humming show tunes in the shower. The way she'd trace mine on my thigh with lipstick. Out on the street. November wind whipping my coat. I hailed a cab to Queens. To the familiar squalor of my old life. Days blurred into a gray haze. I crashed at a friend's couchsurf in Astoria. Dodging Victoria's texts. We need to talk. I'm sorry. Don't do this. Until they stopped. Work. I quit the firm via email. Too chicken for the face-to-face. Bartending picked up the slack. But O'Malley's felt smaller now. The regular stories hollow echoes of my own unraveling. Then came the subpoena. Not for the trial for me. Victoria's ex, Lauren, had lawyered up, claiming defamation. The custody win had ripple effects. The mogul's wife, Lauren's cousin, small world, big knives, was suing for emotional distress, dragging our relationship into the mud. Prove it was real, the summons read. Or perjure yourself. Panic clawed my throat. I met Victoria in neutral territory, a diner off Times Square. Fluorescent lights buzzing like angry bees. She looked wrecked. Dark circles under those sapphire eyes. Hair loose and wild. Like she'd fought sleep with whiskey. 35. She carried the weight of battles won and lost. But tonight, she was just Vic, vulnerable. Human. I didn't know it'd blow back like this, she said. Stirring sugar into coffee she wouldn't drink. Lauren. She twisted it. Said I used you to hurt her. I slid into the booth, knees brushing hers under the formica. And did you? Her gaze snapped to mine. Fierce. No. I used you to save a case. I loved you to save myself. The words hung, heavy as the steam from our mugs. Remy. I screwed up. Went to her for closure. But it was you I needed. Always you. Tears pricked. Hot and unwelcome. Then why does it feel like betrayal? Because I'm terrified, she whispered, hand covering mine. Of losing the one person who made the armor feel like chains. We talked till the waitress kicked us out. Real talk. No scripts. About my abandonment scars. Her family's suffocating expectations. Daughters don't do deviant, darling. About how pretending had peeled us raw. Exposing the girls beneath. The dreamer and the warrior. Both starving for touch that didn't demand performance. By dawn, we were back at her loft. Not for sex, but solace, curled on the couch. Her head in my lap. My fingers combing through raven strands. No more ghosts, I murmured. Just us. But ghosts don't die easy. The deposition loomed. A powder keg. Lauren's lawyers grilled me in a stuffy conference room. All pinstripes and pointed questions. MS. Callahan. Describe your relationship with MS. Hale. I straightened, channeling every ounce of Queen's grit. It started as a job. Ended as love. Real as the heartbeat in my chest. They pressed dates. Detailed. Intimate moments. I held firm. But inside. Doubt gnawed. What if Victoria was still tangled? What if this was just another win for her ledger? That night, high on adrenaline, we celebrated prematurely. Candlelit dinner at her place. Jazz crooning from the speakers. Midway through dessert, cheesecake from Junior's. Smuggled in a brown bag, she dropped the bomb. I turned down a partnership. To go independent. Focus on pro bono queer rights. Foster reform. For us. My fork clattered. Us? After everything. She knelt by my chair. Eyes shining. Yeah. Us. If you'll have a screw-up like me. I pulled her up. Kissing her slow. Deep tasting forgiveness. Future. In bed later. Bodies entwined. She whispered confessions against my skin. You're my unraveling. Remy. The best kind of chaos. But chaos builds to crescendo. 2 days later. The leak hit. Anonymous email to the Bar Association. Photos from Lauren as mid-kiss in that alley. Timestamped pre-dates. Proof the relationship predated the contract. Scandal erupted. Hale's hoax? Screamed the Post. Clients bolted. Sponsors whispered. Victoria's phone rang off the hook. Firm partners demanding her resignation. Family radio silence. She shattered a glass against the wall. Bourbon pooling like blood. It's over. Everything. I held her as sobs racked that unbreakable frame. Not us, I said. Fierce. Fight. Vic. Like you taught me. She looked up. Mascara streaked. Beautiful in ruin. Together. Always. The high-stakes hearing was set for the federal courthouse in Foley Square. A coliseum of justice where careers went to die. We prepped like gladiators. Me digging through emails for timestamps. Her crafting arguments that could sway stone. But betrayal's final twist came via FedEx. An envelope. No return address. Inside a USB drive. Plugged it in. Heart sinking. Videos. Grainy. Intimate, from her ex's hidden cam. Victoria. Post-breakup. Drunk and desperate. Begging Lauren to stay. I can't do this without you. Followed by me. In our bed. Oblivious. Who? Victoria breathed. Face ashen. Lauren. She's burning it all. Rage ignited. We stormed her brownstone in Brooklyn. pounding the door till it cracked open. Lauren stood there, smug in yoga pants, wine glass dangling. "Ladies, to what do I owe? You sick bitch," I snarled, shoving past. Victoria followed, voice steel. "Why? After everything?" Lauren shrugged, that wind chime laugh turning brittle. "You moved on too fast, Vic. With your little charity case. Thought I'd remind you who's real." Victoria's slap echoed like thunder. "Real? You destroyed me once. This? You're done." Cops were called. Mutual acquaintances. Awkward as hell, but the damage was done. Videos scrub. But whispers lingered. As we fled into the night, Victoria's hand in mine, I felt the weight. Love is battlefield. Victory Pyrrhic. The aftermath was a wreckage of what ifs, scattered across the 5 boroughs like confetti from a funeral. Victoria's firm cut her loose with a severance package that bought silence but not peace. Golden handcuffs snapped shut on a career she'd clawed for since law school. 35. She was adrift. No corner office. Just a sublet in Chelsea with boxes stacked like accusations. Me? I stuck by her, crashing there between shifts at O'Malley's, my runner's legs pacing the hardwood till it gleamed. 25 felt ancient those days. Freckles hidden under exhaustion. Auburn hair chopped short in a defiant buzz that said "fuck it" to the world's gaze. We rebuilt in fragments. Mornings were therapy sessions disguised as breakfast, her dissecting betrayal like a brief, me countering with foster kid wisdom. Pain's just scar tissue waiting to toughen you. Afternoons, she'd tutor me in torts, her red pen slashing my notes with affection. "You're sharper than you think. Callahan." Yale material. Evenings, we walked the High Line, hands brushing tourists, stealing kisses under the wildflowers that bloomed defiant against concrete. But scars itch. Lauren's stunt landed her a slap on the wrist. Cease and desist. No charges, but the bar review board circled like vultures. "Ethics violation," the letter read. Victoria faced suspension. Her pro bono dreams deferred. "I should have seen it coming," she'd mutter, staring at the skyline from our tiny balcony. Cigarette dangling unlit, a habit she'd kicked for me, now flirting with relapse. One night, after a particularly brutal Zoom with investigators, she broke. Curled fetal on the futon, sobs muffled in my shirt. "I'm poison. Remy." Everything I touched turns to ash. I held her tighter, chin on her crown. "Not me. You unraveled my walls. Remember, let me build you back." She looked up, eyes red-rimmed sapphires. "How? When I can't even trust myself." "Start small," I said, kissing her forehead, then lips soft, anchoring. One truth at a time. Truths poured out in the weeks that followed. Hers, the closet she'd lived in. Yale whispers of Hale's phase, that nearly broke her before Lauren did. The family estate in the Hamptons. Summers of debutante balls where she'd eyed the maids instead of the heirs. Mine, the last foster home. A nice couple who'd tried with me till I hit 16 and they bailed, citing too much attitude. The marathons, pounding pavement to outrun the void. We turned pain to purpose. Victoria filed her indie practice, Hale Unbound, PLLC, in a walk-up off Wall Street. Neon sign flickering like hope. First client, a trans kid from Brooklyn, evicted by bigots. I paralegaled for free, digging precedents till my eyes crossed. Wins were small, a settlement here, a restraining order there, but they stacked like bricks in a new wall. one around us. Still, conflict simmered. Her family surfaced. A Christmas card from Daddy Dearest. Disappointed. Victoria. Come home. Leave the distractions. She burned it in the sink. Flames dancing in her eyes. They don't get to define us. But doubt crept in mine. Late shifts at the bar. I'd catch myself staring at the door, waiting for her shadow. Was I holding her back? The broke kid anchoring the fallen star? One blizzard night. Snow blanketing the city in hush. I voiced it over mulled wine. Vic. You deserve the world. Not this me. Dragging you down. She set her mug down. Deliberate. Dragging? Remy. You're the gravity keeping me from floating away. She pulled me to the window. Arms around my waist. Chin on my shoulder. Look out there. Chaos. But with you, it's home. The climax crashed in spring. Cherry blossoms mocking our fragility. The board hearing. Wood-paneled room in Albany. Upstate chill seeping through cracks. Victoria in her power suit. Me in the gallery. Heart in my throat. The panel, stuffy suits with Bibles in their briefcases, grilled her. MS. Hale. Did you coerce him? Callahan into perjury. She stood tall. Voice steady as the Hudson. No. What started as strategy became salvation. Remy wasn't coerced, she chose me. As I chose her, she turned, eyes finding mine across the room. Love doesn't follow contracts. It rewrites them. Gasps rippled. The head drone adjusted his glasses. And the videos? Extortion. Revenge, she said flatly. From a woman who couldn't let go. But I have forward. With integrity intact. They deliberated in whispers. The clock ticking like a bomb. I gripped the bench. Nails digging wood. Flashbacks hitting that first scotch. Ellie Rain. Her unraveling me thread by thread. Verdict. Reprimand. No suspension. Probationary practice. Ethics seminar mandatory. As we spilled into the courthouse lobby, sunlight slanting through columns, she grabbed me, fierce hug, then kiss, right there amid the gawkers. We did it. You did. I breathed, laughing through tears. No. Us. Summer bloom tentative. We road-tripped the coast, Big Sur's cliffs mirroring our edges, camping under stars. Her head on my rolled-up hoodie. Stories swapping like fireflies. Back in the city. Life settled. Her practice thriving on queer cases. Me enrolling in night law at CUNY. Fueled by her belief. You'll bury me in court one day, she'd tease. Nipping my ear. But humanity's the real hook, no tidy bows. Lauren resurfaced. Not with venom. But vulnerability, a letter. Postmarked LA. I was wrong. Watching you fight. Freed me to fix myself. Be happy. Vic. Victoria read it aloud. Voice cracking. Then framed it, reminder that even villains heal. Our first anniversary hit in autumn. Leaves carpeting Central Park like confetti. Picnic under the Bethesda fountain PB&J. Cheap bubbly. Her in jeans that hugged like promises. To pretenses unraveled, she toasted. Clinking plastic cups. To walls rebuilt, I countered. Pulling her close. The kiss was slow burn. Familiar yet electric. Her fingers in my short hair. Mine tracing the scar from her divorce papers paper cut, ironic. That. As dusk fell. Fireflies winking. She whispered, Marry me? Not for show. For us. Tears blurred the lights. Yes. Hell yes. No grand wedding, just City Hall. Witnesses from the bar, O'Malley's crew. Teary and tipsy. Rings, simple gold bands etched with Unravelled. Her family. Absent. But we toasted them anyway. To ghosts laid to rest. Years later. In our Brooklyn brownstone, victory of another trial. Fostering our first kid. A wide-eyed girl with my freckles. I'd catch Victoria watching me. That ruthless glint softened to wonder. Hired you to pretend, she'd say. Smirking over bedtime stories. But you made me real. And in the quiet. As rain tapped the roof like applause. I'd kiss her deep. Anchoring. Because in America's grind. Where dreams bruise and loves scar. We found the human truth. Sometimes. The best defenses crumble for the right siege.